We're going to begin the morning bell chant. You'll find the bell chant for this month as a loose leaf page in the chant book. Please feel free to follow along or join in however you're comfortable. We invoke your name, Avalokiteshvara. We aspire to learn your way of listening in order to help relieve the suffering in the world. You know how to listen in order to understand. We invoke your name in order to practice listening with all our attention and open-heartedness. We will sit and listen without any prejudice. We will sit and listen without judging or reacting. We will sit and listen in order to understand. We will sit and listen so attentively that we will be able to hear what the other person is saying and also what is being left unsaid. We know that just by listening deeply, we already alleviate a great deal of pain and suffering in the other person. We invoke your name, Manjushri. We aspire to learn your way, which is to be still and look deeply into the heart of things and into the hearts of people. We will look with all our attention and open-heartedness. We will look with unprejudiced eyes. We will look without judging or reacting. We will look deeply so that we will be able to see and understand the roots of suffering and the impermanent and selfless nature of all that is. We will practice your way of using the sword of understanding to cut through the bonds of suffering, thus freeing ourselves and other species. We invoke your name, Samantabhadra. We aspire to practice your vow to act with the eyes and heart of compassion, to bring joy to one person in the morning and to ease the pain of one person in the afternoon. We know that the happiness of others is our own happiness, and we aspire to practice joy on the path of service. We know that every word, every look, every action, every smile can bring happiness to others. We know that if we practice wholeheartedly, we ourselves may become an inexhaustible source of peace and joy for our loved ones and for all species. We invoke your name, Kashitagarbha. We aspire to learn your way of being present where there is darkness, suffering, oppression, and despair, so we can bring light, hope, relief, and liberation to those places. We are determined not to forget about or abandon those in desperate situations. We will do our best to establish contact with those who cannot find a way out of their suffering, those whose cries for help, justice, equality, and human rights are not being heard. We know that hell can be found in many places on earth. We will do our best not to contribute to creating more hells on earth, and we will help transform the hells that already exist. We will practice in order to realize the qualities of perseverance and stability so that, like the earth, we can always be supportive and faithful to those in need. We invoke your name, Sadaparibhuta. We aspire to learn your way of looking deeply with the eyes of non-discrimination in order to see the true qualities of others. Whenever you meet anyone, you bow respectfully and say in appreciation, I respect you deeply. You are a future Buddha. We vow to look deeply into ourselves, to recognize the positive qualities that are there, to accept and to love ourselves. We vow only to water positive seeds in ourselves and in those around us. By doing so, our thoughts, words, and deeds will give rise to self-confidence and acceptance of our children, grandchildren, and all those we know. We vow to look deeply with the eyes of non-discrimination, to see that the joy and success of the other person is also our joy and success. We vow to behave and to speak with humility and respect. We vow to practice loving speech, to underestimate themselves, see that they are wonders of the universe. We know that only when we are able to transcend the barriers of a separate self shall we be able to transform the superiority, inferiority, and equality complexes and realize true happiness and freedom. We will now continue to observe noble silence.
We bow. Good morning, everyone. It's amazing to see so many people here. I think I counted 55, maybe 56. It's fabulous. Welcome this Sunday morning. Few announcements before we begin. If you need to use the restrooms, they're just on the other side of that wall. There's also some water with cups at this entrance, and if you can also go downstairs. The water fountain is not working downstairs, so if you do need to use water, there is a pitcher of water in the kitchen that you can pour yourself a glass from. A reminder to not walk across the front of the dais. That's for the sake of the camera and out of respect for those sitting here. We can take it along the back. That would be helpful. And I think the last thing is enjoy the chants that we'll be chanting this morning. Put life into them. Have fun with them. Okay. So don't treat them like it's not about the words. Okay. It's about the feeling that we're invoking as we chant this. Okay. We're moving our minds in a way that is moving them towards enlightenment. So when you're ready, we're going to go ahead and stand up, and we're going to start by greeting each other silently. And in your chant books, I believe it's page 7, we are going to be chanting our 3 refuges. I go for refuge to Buddha, my deeply awakened mind, the living source of understanding and compassion, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to Dharma, the path of mindful living, leading to healing, joy, and enlightenment, the way of peace, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to Sangha, the loving and supportive community of practice, realizing harmony, awareness, and liberation, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I am aware that the 3 jewels are within my heart. I vow to realize them. I vow to understand living beings and their suffering. I vow to cultivate loving kindness and compassion, and to practice joy and equanimity. I vow to live simply and sanely, content with few possessions, and to keep my body healthy. I vow to let go of all worry and anxiety in order to be light and free. I am aware that I owe so much to my parents, teachers, friends, and all beings. I vow to be worthy of their trust, to practice wholeheartedly, so that understanding and compassion will flower, and I can help living beings be free from their suffering. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. We bow. And just on the next page, we will be chanting the Heart Sutra together. If you feel inspired to harmonize, please do so. I know sometimes people are thinking it in their heads like, I'd really like to do that. Like, do it. It's really lovely to hear the whole chorus of everybody when we're chanting this incredibly powerful sutra. Dhamma Prajna Paramita Hridaya Sutra. The Bodhisattva of great compassion from the deep practice of prajna, paramita, perceived the emptiness of all five skandhas and delivered all beings from their suffering. O Shariputra, form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form. Form is emptiness, emptiness form. The same is true of feeling, thought, impulse, and consciousness. O Shariputra, all dharmas are empty. They are not born nor annihilated. They are not defiled nor immaculate. They do not increase nor decrease. So in emptiness, no form, no feeling, no thought, no impulse, no consciousness, no eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, no form, sound, smell, taste, touch, or objects of mind, no realm of sight, no realm of consciousness, no ignorance, nor extinction of ignorance, no old age and death, nor extinction of them, no suffering, no cause of suffering, no cease from suffering, no path to lead out of suffering, no knowledge, no attainment, no realization, for there is nothing to attain. The Bodhisattva holds on to nothing but prajna, paramita. Therefore the mind is clear of any delusive hindrance. Without hindrance there is no fear. Away from all perverted views, one reaches final nirvana. All Buddhas of past, present, and future, through faith in prajna, paramita, attain to the highest perfect enlightenment. Know then the prajna, paramita, is the great Dharani, the radiant peerless mantram, the utmost supreme mantram, which is capable of allaying all pain. This is true beyond all doubt. Proclaim now the highest wisdom, the prajna, paramita. Gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha. Gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha. Gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha. Dhamma prajna paramita hridaya sutra. We bow.
It's amazing. It's just amazing. It's been a long time since I've been in here, and there's been this many people. It's been close, but not quite like this. Sorry, robe management. If you've ever seen us up here kind of shifting and trying to tuck our robes in, it's because this robe is considered a robe of the Buddha. So it's not supposed to touch the ground. It's not supposed to get any dirt on it because you want to keep the Dharma clean. So you'll often see us kind of like tucking the edges in and like trying not to let it fall off of our seat so we can keep it clean. My name is Igye Sue. My real life person name is Z, short for Elizabeth. I've been teaching at the temple. I got my robes in July of last year, but we were teaching and doing Dharma talks a little bit earlier than that. So I'd say like a little bit over a year. And it's just been a really beautiful journey to give talks and deepen my own knowledge of the Dharma and practice in how I can use this Dharma to help serve this Sangha. And in my recent studies, there's been a focus on mental afflictions. And I'm going to talk a little bit about those today and how we can work through them, even if we might not be a practicing Dharma teacher. Each one of us has our own practice. So we all come to Buddhism in our own way. And it's usually when we realize that we don't want to suffer anymore. We don't want to be in pain anymore. And this path that we go on, just like life, has ups and downs. There's good things that happen and bad things that happen. And I think it's a common mistake to think that, oh, my practice is going so well. So, my life is so good right now. That must mean that my practice is well. I actually think the opposite is true. When you are going through tough times, the really challenging moments, that is really when you get to practice. Because good times, well, what's there to practice with good times? Okay. So it's those challenging moments, whether it's a challenging situation or with challenging people, when our mental afflictions come up, we have an opportunity to train that. So as we're going on this trip of life, okay, this is one where we discover more and more of who we are. And it's like removing layers and going, oh, hey, that was that 5-year-old version of me. And that was that 14-year-old version of me. And that was the 21-year-old version of me. And that was the, I really liked to party in college version of me, So you are continually peeling away these layers that we've built up over the years. Another way to think of it is all these different masks that we keep taking off. It's like one mask, and then there's another mask behind that, and another mask, and another mask. And the path of Buddhism, or what the Buddha taught, is how you get to what's behind all of those masks, which is the true essence of who we are. So what happens when we start on this path? Well, first, we might come to a realization of the 4 Arya truths, or what many of you guys might know as the 4 noble truths, which some would like to argue that that's not quite the right name for them because it can be misinterpreted. When we talk about the 4 noble truths, it's not that the truths themselves are noble, it's that the people who realize those truths are considered noble. So what are those truths? Does anybody remember the first one? What is it? Yeah, there's suffering. Life is suffering. What about the second one? Cause of suffering. What's the third one? Which one? There's a way out of suffering. And what's the fourth one? The Eightfold Path. And I think, what's the other way we say it? The path that leads you to freedom. Okay, the path that leads you to liberation. And so we have this understanding that in order to be free from our suffering, the very first thing you have to do is you have to renounce your suffering. You have to realize that it's no longer serving you. And then the next thing that comes after that, in Mahayana Buddhism, the next step would be to follow the path as a bodhisattva. And that's another type of renunciation. But instead of just renouncing your suffering for you, you're renouncing your suffering for all other living beings, all sentient beings. And so that's what we're doing when we develop this wish of bodhicitta, which is the wish for total enlightenment for the sake of all beings. And so right now, our Bodhisattva class is currently reading this incredibly revered text in Mahayana Buddhism called The Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life by Master Shantideva. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about one of the chapters there, well, a couple of the chapters, but mainly focused on chapter 5, which is called the chapter on guarding introspection. And what Master Shantideva reminds us of is to remain like a piece of wood or like a bump on a log. And I'm using the Tibetan translation into English, so this might be different than what we're currently studying in our Bodhisattva class. So just be aware that there's some different language here. When one sees one's own mind to be attached or repulsed, then one should neither act nor speak, but remain still like a piece of wood. When my mind is haughty, sarcastic, full of conceit and arrogance, ridiculing, evasive, and deceitful, when it is inclined to boast, or when it is contemptuous of others, abusive and irritable, then I should remain like a piece of wood. When my mind seeks material gain, honor, and fame, or when it seeks attendance and service, then I will remain still like a piece of wood. When my mind is averse to the interests of others and seeks my own self-interest, or when it seeks to speak out of a desire for an audience, then I will remain still like a piece of wood. When it is impatient, indolent, timid, impudent, garrulous, or biased in my own favor, then I will remain still like a piece of wood. So when is it that we should be remaining like a piece of wood, or to remain like a bump on a log? And I'm sure I could get some answers from the audience here, but I'll just make it easy for you. Whenever you notice your mental afflictions flare up, and another word for this in Sanskrit is your kleshas, okay? And there are 6 main mental afflictions, and this might be me spotlighting somebody who's either taking the Bodhisattva class before or is currently taking it. Does anybody remember or know what some of the 6 main mental afflictions are? Nobody wants to take a guess? Yes. Attachment. That's the very first one. And in the tradition that I'm currently studying, we actually call it ignorant liking. So attachment or ignorant liking. So that's one. That's the first one. What about the second one? Aversion. Okay. Or ignorant disliking. Okay. What about the third one? I'll give you a hint. If you take away liking and disliking, what's the word that's left? Ignorance. Okay. So that's not listening to the gift of the Dharma when it's presented to you, or ignoring where your liking and disliking comes from. It's like when a doctor tells you that you need to stop smoking in order to, continue to live. And you're just like, nah, I'm good. I'm just going to keep doing this and cause more suffering for myself. Okay. What about where am I? Fourth one. This is the one I have a hard time with. All right. Well, Anger. Not anger. That's actually a secondary, but it's on there. Doubt. It is doubt. So normally when we're referring to doubt in Buddhism, it's doubts about the path, that we think that maybe it's not possible to do this. Maybe I can't reach enlightenment in this lifetime. Maybe I will never be able to see the direct perception of emptiness, or maybe this is all just a bunch of hullabaloo and it's all just crazy talk. Okay. I would hope that with as many people here that that's not the way that many of you think, but doubt is definitely something that creeps into all of our practice. And then the fifth one, pride. Okay. So that's when you put yourself above others, waiting to do things, think of it as like you wait for somebody to ask you to do something that only you can do. And you're like, it's kind of an odd one, but, pride does come up in certain situations. And that's one of the 6 main mental afflictions. There's also a negative pride. And then there's the sixth one. Does anybody know what that one is? No. Wrong view. Okay. And wrong view actually has 5 parts to it. Okay. So the first one is perishable view, and it focuses on the parts of a person and then holds that person to be self-existent. And when I say self-existent, you think that it's that thing is always going to exist permanently. Like it's not subject to change. Okay. It exists as it is. Okay. And this is when we focus on, think of like the parts of an elephant, the story about the blind folks who have all their different perspectives about what part of the elephant they're looking at. This is like you thinking that your body parts or the people in your life are self-existent. So like, I can't live without my hand. I can't live without my legs. I can't live without my eyeballs. Okay. Blind people do it every day. Okay. So there's ways to think about how we observe our attachments to the things that are always with us and have been with us our whole lives. Then we have extreme view, which focuses on the person, which is a perishable view, and holds that this person is either unchanging or non-existent. So it's kind of like when, you think about a family member and you're like, oh, they're always like that. Okay. They're never going to change. That is giving into the extreme view of assuming that they're not subject to impermanence. And it's also preventing you from learning how to have compassion towards them. And then there's wrong view, which is belief that your actions and consequences, or your actions don't have consequences. So this is the law of karma. Okay. So cause and effect. What you do has results. Okay. The way that you think has results. The way that you act has results. The way that you speak has results. And there's a little bit more to this that there's like in the Tibetan tradition, you have to believe in past lives, past and future lives, but that takes some logic to get to. And if you ever feel like pursuing that path, you can talk to me and I can point you in the right direction of where you can learn some of that information. And then there's the view of holding one's wrong views as highest. So it's like, I'm always right. Okay. I know I'm right. Okay. It's finding that dualism. It's like giving into it and then, forgetting that you're a practicing Buddhist and then going, oh yeah, there's that thing too. So it's a really, it's a thing to balance, and it takes time to work through it. The last one of wrong view is that view that mistaken morality and asceticism are highest. Okay. So this is belief that spiritual practices which hurt yourself are the best ones. So it's like, I'm going to do 100 prostrations every morning, even if it means I throw my back out. Like, no, don't do that. Please don't do that. Like, you're not going to benefit anybody if you start thinking that way. Okay. While it is good to have a practice that revolves around certain things, it does mean that you need to do it in a way that's intelligent. Okay. Not ignorant. All right. A quote from Master Shantideva. This great enemy of mine, kleshas, can live on for a very long time, but there is not one worldly enemy that will last as long. The kleshas are what continue in our mind stream. These are the things that the seeds that you plant, they will ripen and they will create more seeds. An apple seed produces an apple tree, which produces apple fruit. One seed, think about how many seeds that one seed can produce. I mean, there's like 6 seeds per apple. And I'm not an apple farmer. So if anybody is an apple farmer, you're an apple farmer or know about apples. How many apples are roughly on one tree? That's a lot of seeds. Okay. So just that right there, the way that you're planting seeds in your mind, you are creating that many opportunities for that to continue to happen in the future. Okay. It's like, if you want to become a world-renowned concert pianist, what do you do to become that? You practice over and over and over and over and over again. You keep doing the same thing. So the same thing for our mental afflictions. The more that you continue to put up those barriers, with other people, or you say, oh, they're always like that, or you find that you're always going to be irritated by that one person, whatever it is, there's always going to be some kind of mental affliction that we've got to work through. And so our practice is identifying those things and then challenging yourself. And even in moments where it's like you notice like your mind moving in a certain way, like a judgment towards somebody, and you catch yourself and you're like, oh, wow, that's interesting. I've never observed this before. I was at the St. Patrick's Day parade last weekend. My students were in the parade, so it's like I kind of have to be there as a representative of the Irish community. And for those of you who don't know, I'm an Irish dancing teacher here in town, and so I have to be there, do the thing. St. Patrick's Day is quite a busy weekend for us. But at the end of the parade, my husband and I parked my mom and over by the Grand Rapids Community College, excuse me. And because she was having, a hard time with her hip or something. And she just was like, I can't walk all the way back from where we started. And so we decided to go get the car to pick her up. And so we come and pick her up and she says, I had the most interesting experience when you guys went to go pick up the car. And she was with my daughter, who's 3 years old. And she was, sitting at those tables that they have this kind of like lunch area. And on some of the tables, they have charging ports. And there was a houseless individual there, and they were trying to figure out how to use the cable to charge their phone. And my mom's in IT. She's been in IT for a long time. And she noticed her initial reaction happening, this initial aversion to like, well, I got to mind my own business and I got to do my own thing. And she had this kind of revelation because we had been talking about it earlier that week. And she immediately stopped and turned around and went and helped her and went and had this conversation with her. And it created this beautiful moment for connection. That how often do we pass those things up? How often do we pass up opportunities where we could be creating those moments of connection with other people? And you're not just making a difference in your own life, but you're making a difference in somebody else's. So that's kind of like an example of overcoming your mental afflictions. So you can have an enemy, but the mental affliction that created that enemy isn't gone. Does that make sense? So when we're reading through some of Shanti Deva's texts, we talk about the ultimate enemy. It's never a person. It's always our own mental afflictions, okay? And when we can actually remember where our mental afflictions are coming from, they're not coming from out there. They're not coming from the irritating person. They're not coming from the driver that's riding your, tailgating you. It's coming from you. It's your response to that. And how often do you stop yourselves and go, oh, I could really change how I think about this. I don't have to put myself through so much suffering. Why am I doing this to myself? It's coming from us. It's not coming from anybody else. And that's what the Buddha taught. And so it's taking moments like that and learning how to apply them to your life. How can you change how you see the world? And the big reason that we want to do this, the big reason that we practice this is because we're all going to die someday. I know this is the grave, dark part of the talk, and I'll try not to cry because I get emotional sometimes, as some of you know. So I'll try not to cry. But, so how much work can you do before you die, before you pass away? How much can you transform this mental stream of yours? And I'm going to quote the last 3 verses in chapter 9, which is the chapter on wisdom in the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. As they live like this, pretending that they are not subject to aging and death, terrible calamities come, with death the foremost of them. Thus, when I might bring relief to those tormented by the fire of suffering, with the requisites of happiness springing forth from the clouds of my merit, when shall I respectfully teach emptiness and the accumulation of merit in terms of conventional truth and without reification to those whose views are rarefied or reified? And this is from Gyaltsab Dharma Rinchen, who is a disciple of the great Tsongkhapa, from his commentary on the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life called Entry Point for the Children of the Victorious Buddhas. If at the same time you have failed to free yourself from all your own mental afflictions, then you have failed even in the endeavor of accomplishing all your own needs, much less those of others. Are you not some kind of madman then, to say that you are going to free every other living being from their mental afflictions, while at this very same moment you have failed to completely to judge your own level? The fact that you yourself are still at the mercy of your own mental afflictions? No one chained in the cycle of suffering of life themselves could ever accomplish all the goals of other living beings. So you should rather make efforts to destroy the mental afflictions within your own mind. And so, as I mentioned before, there are 20 secondary roots that come from the 6 main roots. Gail mentioned one of them, and it's the first one, anger. Then we also have resentment, irritation, hiding your faults, jealousy, stinginess, or not giving, deceit, dissembling, arrogance, violent feelings, shamelessness, lack of consideration, confusion, restlessness, lack of faith, laziness, carelessness, forgetfulness, lack of awareness, and distraction. And I wish I could talk for an hour because we could really dig into all those things, but we can't. So why does Gyaltsab on the idea of a strong love for the path, hatred for your mental afflictions, and hatred for your mental afflictions are mental afflictions themselves? And I'll say that again. So if you have this really strong love for the path and you have this hatred for your mental afflictions, aren't those mental afflictions themselves? They are. We're attaching an aversion or ignorant liking and ignorant disliking right there. Okay. And so the reason that it's also essential to have both of those things is because those are elements of the path itself. That is your entryway and to continue to investigate it. Okay. So this path is intended to help you destroy the mental afflictions. They cannot be considered a part of the group of objects which must be eliminated from the mind. You need to have a love for a path. You need to have that. I'm going to get rid of these mental afflictions. You have to have that. It's essential. Okay. This is what the logicians in the Tibetan lineage will tell you. And he further says that the commentaries which explain that these two attitudes must be eliminated later are only referred to the fact that once all of your mental afflictions have been eliminated, that these two will no longer function in the fight against the mental afflictions. So you can think of your love for the path and your aversion for your negative affliction or negative mental afflictions as a boat that is moving you towards enlightenment. We talk about the raft towards enlightenment. That's it. Okay. It's our love for the path and our distaste for our mental afflictions. I'm going to try and make this quick. 'Cause I gotta get going. We gotta meditate. We gotta train our mind. Okay. We gotta get out of this samsara. So where are our mental afflictions rooted in? What's the root of a mental affliction? Keep yelling out words. There's some of those that are on the right track there. It's misperception. Okay. So misperception means that we have this habitual misunderstanding of where the world is coming from. We think that the world is coming from out there, but really it's coming from here. Okay. Another way to think of it is one of the simplest teachings on emptiness that I've been taught. And let me think. How do I want to do this? I got to think about this. We'll go with this one. Okay. What is this to you? Maybe a mallet. A mallet, right? It's a mallet for a bell. What might this be to a dog? A chew toy, right? So who's to say who's right? Would you say that a dog is a sentient being? I would. So who's right? The dog or you? Right. We're both right. So that is a teaching on emptiness. It means that this thing isn't inherently what we think it is. Okay. I could look at this as a beautiful bowl, or I could think of it as something that I could eat an enormous amount of pudding out of. Okay. I know if I was 5 years old, that's what I would be thinking. Okay. So this practice of seeing emptiness is something that we're doing with our mental afflictions. It's going, oh, my anger isn't in the guy tailgating me. It's in me. It's, in my case, it's when my toddler is singing at the top of her lungs. I like to say screaming, but it's not screaming. She's singing. And I'm really trying to concentrate on work. And I really want to think that she's creating my irritation. And in reality, if I just remain like a bump on a log and not react and look truly at where this irritation is coming from, which is my own perception, it means that instead of, I don't have to let the obnoxious singing go on, and you can already see that I've got my self-existent way of thinking about this. But I can, instead of reacting in a negative way, I can go to her and say, hey, maybe we can sing at a different time, or maybe we can sing quietly. I can approach her in a way that won't make her feel like she is inferior, that she's doing something wrong, when all she's trying to do is enjoy herself. So it's really, how can you look at a situation just a little bit differently with a little bit more compassion and wisdom and react accordingly? So I think the last thing I really want to leave you with is that when we're learning to become friends with our negative emotions, it's hard to wrestle with that emotional turmoil. It's difficult. It just is. And there are times where you're going to be like, oh, I don't want it today. I just want things to go my way. Okay. And that right there is an opportunity to practice. But really, it takes a lot of courage to recognize these patterns of our negative emotions. It takes a lot of courage. And if you can be brave enough to do it, you're going to make the world a better place. And the last thing that came to me, anybody here familiar with the children's game show, Legends of the Hidden Temple? Okay, really good one. Was popular in the 90s and the early 2000s, and it probably went on for a little bit longer. But so Olmec always said, the choices are yours and yours alone. And if you really want to end your pain and suffering, each of us has to take responsibility for our habit mind, and we have to transform the way that we see the world. You can either see it as this crappy place of suffering, or you can transform your mind into seeing the most blissful moments that are in front of you, the most blissful opportunities. And what I think is really beautiful is that each person in this room has had the opportunity to listen to the Dharma today. We've all had the opportunity to practice just sitting here for, 45 minutes together, or if you were here at the bell chant, just over an hour. Not many people have this opportunity. And when I heard the little baby cooing as you were coming in, I was starting to just cry completely, because I think about how if we continue to offer these opportunities to the young people in our lives, we are creating that world, that blissful experience. Because if they grow up seeing that the world doesn't have to be filled with pain and suffering, imagine what this world would be like. So as the Buddha sat in his enlightenment, Mara was shooting arrows. He sent all of his demons to shoot arrows at him, and he turned them into flowers. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is to turn those flaming arrows that are being launched at you from the demons of hell and turn them into the most fragrant, beautiful flowers that you can imagine. Prepare yourself for meditation. This will be a guided meditation. And as we get into this portion, I want to remind you to be gentle with yourselves and to notice when your mind is trying to move in a negative way, and be gentle with it. And as a reminder for your posture, you want to make sure that you're seated up, spine is straight, like a string pulling you from the top. Hands rested either on the top of your thighs or in your lap. You want to make sure your chin is level with the floor. If you're seated in a chair, I would, if you can, sit forward with your feet flat on the ground for support. The reason for this in Tibetan Buddhism is there's a belief of the central channels and a practice with the central channels that comes from your spine. So if you're not sitting up straight, you're not actually giving your mind that opportunity, and it's the way that the winds move in your body to transform that in a successful way. And so as you settle in and you let those eyes close, bring your attention to the tip of your nose and gently go through a body scan starting at the bottom of your feet and working towards the top of your head, allowing each of those body parts where you're finding tension, tightness, stress, and just allowing those to relax a little bit more. Letting the legs relax, allowing the shoulders to sink closer to the floor, maybe pulling up through your head a little bit if you've already started slouching. And bring your focus to the tip of the nose and just notice your breath as you are breathing in and out. Allow the mind to become centered on that. If any distracting thoughts come up, just put them aside. You can deal with them later. For now, just try and come to a stillness in your body, a silence in your mind, and an open spaciousness to the potential that your mind holds. We're going to be observing what's going on in your mind and maybe what's the most common secondary mental affliction that you experience. And maybe you experienced it in the last couple of days. And this could have been frustration, irritation, a flash of anger, or maybe a missed expectation. And just take an opportunity to review what happened and how you reacted or responded. And if you can, take an opportunity to investigate where this reaction really came from. Was it inherently in the situation itself? Or was it inherently in the other person? Now take an opportunity to imagine what might have happened if you had frozen like a bump on a log. How does the result of the situation change? Now imagine that if you had moved your mind instead towards goodness in your response, and instead of staying like a bump on a log, what good karma might you have accumulated for yourself and others? When we practice review meditation, it gives us the opportunity to change our response in the future. We can instead turn this pain that we're experiencing into power. As Shantideva encourages us to do, we can become a protector for those without protection. We can become a guide for those who have lost their way. We can become a ship to cross oceans. We can become a bridge to cross rivers. We can be a lamp for those without light. We can be a bed for those who seek rest. And we can be a servant to all beings in need. Now take a moment to dedicate this goodness of this meditation to someone who has a challenging time with their own mental afflictions. Hold that person in your thoughts. How can you become an example of Shantideva's advice of remaining like a log for them? I know that was short, and I wish I could have gone longer, but this is a really in-depth subject, and it's one that is literally in our lives like every single day. So it's a big one, and it's one that as you go through your practice day to day, week to week, month to month, if you're not keeping a journal of how your practice is going, highly recommend it. This way you can actually go back and see like, wow, I've really made big strides on this mental affliction. And the other thing that I think is really important in the practice, and that I'm reminded all the time by my teacher, is to rejoice in catching your mind. Rejoice in it. Even if you've already had the reaction and you go, crap, I did it again. Okay. You noticed it. You did something to move your mind in the other direction. And that is what's so important. And you just have to keep working at that, even if it feels sometimes like it's not fruitful. So I'm going to be the Dharma teacher that gives you spiritual homework. Okay. And your spiritual homework for the week is to rejoice when you notice your mental afflictions come up and see if you can remain like a bump on a log. Challenge yourself. And if you don't think you have a mental affliction and you're secretly a Buddha, reveal yourself. Because I got a lot to learn and I'm trying to get out of samsara. So I wish I could talk. I wish we could have questions. I just feel like an hour just isn't long enough, and not even an hour. We get like 20 minutes to talk. And it'd be nice to have a question and answer at the end. But I'll be around after. So if you have any questions about the practice, or looking for a book to read or advice, or I'll do my best to answer. As I said before, I'm not a Buddha yet, so I'll do the best I can to help you out. So with that, we are going to move into our joys and concerns. This is an opportunity for you to share with your Sangha your challenges or your joys that are occurring in your life.
Hi, my name is Ellen. I'm a fourth generation breast cancer thriver. And we celebrated this weekend with chocolate cake because it's been 17 years since my diagnosis. And I think about all the women that have gone before me, the ones who are walking the path with me now, and hopefully the numbers get smaller and smaller for the ones that come behind me. So grateful for that.
Today I'm going to have the opportunity to see my little brother for the first time in 3 months. Last time he did see me was in the hospital in a very dire situation. So that's a joy of mine. I get to see him again.
I got a joy. I'll sneak in. I am on a break for 2 weeks, so I'm not working. I have a group of kids who are going to compete at the World Irish Dancing Championships this week in Glasgow, Scotland. And my mom is, I'm very happy that she was able to go and support them and be with them in my stead. So I'm celebrating their achievements, their accomplishments, and just wishing them all the best of luck. Are there any online?
It's just initials, but they said they're happy to be able to go spend today with their friends at a reptile show.
I'll be sharing a joy today. So we had our first baby the 15th of last month. She's very beautiful. Her name is Khalida. It means eternal. And this is also our first time at the temple. I have always wanted to go. I've been subscribing to the Buddha's teachings for about a year now. And it is just very beautiful to share the energy of mindfulness with so many people.
Going once? Going twice? Okay, so let's go ahead and hold a moment of all those joys and both heard and unheard, as well as the concerns that are unheard. We bow. All right, announcements. Okay, we've got March announcements. Well, some of these will move on. Online meditation group on Wednesdays from 7 to 7:45. There is a link in the newsletter. Love to have you join us. I'll be leading it this week, although Kunga is usually leading it week to week. And we've had this really lovely ongoing practice for March that has been really beautiful about cultivating compassion. We have our Thursday Dharma discussion group here at the temple, 9:30 a.m. to 11. If you're interested in coming, you can either show up, or if you would like a little bit more information, you can email Reverend Jingsu. All that information is it's on our website, and it's in the newsletter. We have a spring silent retreat coming up on Saturday, April 27th from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the temple. It's an all-day thing. We do a potluck in the middle. It's a really beautiful practice. We had an awesome retreat in February. I swear the months are all running together. I can't keep track of time anymore. So if you're interested in that, sign up online or reach out to Kunga for more information. We have Buddhist-based recovery meetings, Mondays at the temple, Wednesdays at the Alano Club, and Fridays at the temple. There's the opportunity for Zoom on Fridays. All the times and more information, I believe, is on our website. But you can also reach out to any of us for more information on that. I don't think I have to talk about the weather notices, but as of Friday, maybe I do. We'll send e-alerts and post online if temple's going to be closed. So just always check in. It's usually 24 hours before temple. So if we do find that there's going to be crazy weather on a Sunday, just check in with our social medias or send an email or something like that to make sure that we're actually going to be open or we haven't moved service online. Okay. Do I have a Dana announcement? I do. Yay. For those of you who would like to generate good karma in the practice of giving, which is the foundational practice of perfection in the 6 paramitas, you can do things like sign up to give the Dana announcement. You can sign up to be an incense lighter. You can sign up to be a greeter. And it's a really, really beautiful way to allow your practice to blossom.
Yep. So I'm Anna, and I'll talk about generosity as well, or Dana, which is central to our practice. The temple runs on all of our generosity. And if you would like to donate funds towards keeping the temple open, we have boxes at each end of the temple where you can leave cash or a check. If you're on YouTube, there's a drop-down menu that will lead you to PayPal, where you can also make a donation. And on the website, zengr.org, is also a link towards PayPal. And you can leave a one-time donation or set up a recurring donation as well. If you are interested in donating material goods to the temple, you can see Nikki. She will give you a list of things that we might be needing at this time. And then, as Igye Sue said, if there's any other opportunities that you'd like to give towards, you can see one of our teachers, and they will be glad to explain it to you. So thank you for your generosity.
Are there any other announcements?
Thank you. I just wanted to say a quick word on what you had already covered about the incense lighting ritual that we do, or ceremony, the greeting that we have at the door, and these things. If you're interested in being a part of lighting the incense, learning about the incense lighting ritual, why we do that, learning about how you can help greet people at the door with a smile, and some information to help them feel more comfortable as they come in, please come and see me at any time. And today, after service, I'm going to be hanging out because we have another event here at about 12:15. So for the next hour or so, I'm just going to be hanging out here. And it's a good opportunity too. But anytime you'd like, come and see me, and I can help you get some information about some of those things. So thank you. And thank you to everybody who takes part in all of that.
So I'm Upaskar John. We're having some trouble with the tech team. We could really use some support. We're looking for 2 more people to join. Contrary to the name, it's not really all that technical. It's just helping with the streaming services so that our online Sangha members and people who can't make it for whatever reason can still enjoy the teachings. So if that is something that you would like to do, please let me know.
It really isn't that hard. If you know how to log on to Zoom and press record, like, that's pretty much it. Like, it's really not that hard. But it's helpful because that means that they can share the load and they don't have to be here. They can actually sit and enjoy service as a regular Sangha member and not have to be behind the computer screen. However, some people find that that is a great opportunity to generate good karma. And I'm sure that there's somebody out there who would be like, I want to be there every week, pressing that button, making sure that people hear the Dharma. So a really beautiful way to learn how to transform your mind. So my last reminders before we chant together are that when you stand up, please make sure to just kind of fluff your cushion up. Tags are to the back of the room for the Zafus. Make sure your spacing is kind of, decently there. And then your chant books, if you can just put them back together after we're done chanting, and hand them to somebody who's collecting them, that would be a lot of help. I was going to say, we still have 1 more week of service before we have a cleanup. And I'll get to see you all next week, which I'm kind of excited for. So if you want to come back and hear part 2 of the mental afflictions and what you can do to what you can practice perfecting, that's what we'll be talking about next week. So at this point, let's go ahead and stand up. And on page 9 of your chant book, we are going to chant our gathas together. And together we say, for all unskillful actions ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thoughts, now I atone for them all. Vast is the robe of compassion, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Buddha's teachings for the benefit of all sentient beings. All beings, one body, I vow to liberate. Endless blind passion, I vow to uproot. Dharma gates without number, I vow to penetrate. The great way of Buddha, I vow to attain. And if this side of the room, we'll turn to that side of the room. And if you need to kind of like just stay in the middle, stay in the middle. And we will bow. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful Sunday. Thank you.